So why on earth has she decided to do it? Well, the Prime Minister, I'm pleased to say, joins us in the studio. Good morning to you, Prime Minister.
Good morning, Nick.
Now, you have often presented yourself, you did when you ran for the leadership and to be Prime Minister, as the daughter of a vicar, committed to public service. I just get on with the job in front of me, you said. So do you now regret giving your word and so flagrantly breaking it?
I do get on with the job that's in front of me. When I became Prime Minister last July, I felt that the most important thing was stability for the country. We'd had the referendum, which had come out with a result in terms of voting to leave the EU that hadn't been expected. Obviously, David Cameron had resigned. I'd taken over as Conservative Party leader and Prime Minister. And I felt it was important to have a period of stability at that stage and to ensure that the British people could have confidence that their government was going to deliver on what they'd voted for, which was leaving the European Union. And so getting through that process of the early work of preparation for and then triggering Article 50 was very important. When it came to triggering Article 50, around that time, it became clear the extent to which the opposition parties in Westminster were intent on what I would describe as frustrating the Brexit process, because Brexit isn't just about the letter that says we want to leave. It's about negotiating the deal. It's about getting the right deal from Europe. And, you know, when we've been told by the Liberal Democrats they want to grind the government to a standstill, Labour threatening to vote against the deal, the SNP, the Scottish Nationalists, saying they would vote against us legislating to leave the European Union, I felt it was important that the country is united. I think there's a unity of purpose in the country.
You're blaming the opposition for your change of mind. I mean, you've changed your mind. You said something and you're now saying exactly the opposite. And let's be clear, it is only a matter of weeks ago that you said in Scotland, now is not the time, you said. All our energies should be focused on our negotiations with the European Union. Everything you've just described, you knew when you said that.
Yeah, what we are now going to be able to do, I believe, with this election is actually strengthen our position in terms of our negotiations with the European Union. If I just come on to that, I think people have a unity of purpose. The public want us to actually deliver on leaving the European Union, and they want us to build that stronger Britain for the future beyond leaving the European Union. That's what having an election now, it gives us that opportunity for stability and certainty for that longer period.
Let me explore your reasons, if I may. You blamed your opponents just now, you blamed them yesterday. Just explain to people, how many times have you been defeated in the House of Commons on Brexit?
We got the Article 50 legislation through.
None, no defeats.
No defeats in the House of Commons.
A majority of 384. So where are these divisions in Westminster that are doing you so much damage?
Well, let's just look at what has happened over the last 9 months or so, Nick. When we took Article 50 legislation through, it's very clear, and we were able to say to people, this was delivering on the vote of the British people in the referendum. They wanted us to trigger Article 50. They wanted us to get on with the job of putting Brexit into practice, of actually leaving the European Union. But what became clear around that time was, yes, people voted in the House of Commons to trigger that process, but they were intent on frustrating the necessary things that we have to do afterwards. We've got to put a great repeal bill.
Prime Minister, it is the duty of the opposition to oppose. We see headlines this morning. Let's look at the Daily Mail. Crush the saboteurs. Is that how you regard people who simply don't agree with the direction you're taking the country?
Absolutely not. Politics and democracy are about, of course, people having different opinions, different views. It's important in Parliament that people are able to challenge what the government is doing, that there's proper debate and scrutiny on what the government is doing. And that's what there will be. We will be putting legislation through, a great repeal bill, to repeal the European Communities Act that took us into the European Union as it has become. But what is important is that we're able to get through the process of negotiation and, with the deal, actually ensure that we get the best possible deal for the United Kingdom, the best possible deal for people across the whole of the UK, and ensure that we're able to put that into practice.
You see, all of this you could have known, and you have known for very many months, indeed, since you became Prime Minister. Which leads people to ask this, doesn't it? Which is, what is it about the recent 20% opinion poll that first attracted you to the idea of a general election?
Look, I've taken this decision, and I took it reluctantly. I've thought about it as I said yesterday when I was, before Easter, I had the opportunity to really take some time out to think about this, having seen what was happening, having seen heard the statements being made by opposition parties about what they wanted to do to the rest of the Brexit process.
Isn't the truth that people said to you, your colleague said, well, you can't resist this, Prime Minister. We're going to win big, we're going to crush the saboteurs, defeat the Labour Party. Let's get on with it.
Look, Nick, every election has a risk. No politician wants to go into an election just for the sake of having an election. I've taken this decision because I genuinely believe it is in the national interest. You described me earlier as somebody who likes to sort of roll up my sleeves and get on with the job. I do, but I also want to take the right decisions, and the right decisions for the UK in the long term. And I believe this will strengthen our hand in negotiations.
Can you just spell it out for us a little bit? Because you said very interesting now, just forgive me, but I'll just quote something you said in The Sun this morning. You said in an interview, now we will be much freer. Now, why will you be freer as a result of having an election 2 years later than the original plan to have an election?
I think you mean earlier than the original.
Yeah, 2 years earlier. Forgive me. Yes. Thank you.
But well, there's two things. First of all, I think if the public, I trust the British public. I'm asking them to put their trust in me. And if they do that, if they give me a mandate for these negotiations, for the plan for Brexit that the government has, the plan for a stronger Britain beyond Brexit that we have, then I think that will strengthen our hand. But also, as I pointed out yesterday, if you look at the timetable, had the election been in 2020, we would have been coming up to the most crucial part of the negotiations, at the end of the negotiations, in what would be starting to be the run-up to a general election.
Yeah, that's the extra 2 years I was talking about. In other words, you delay the general election, which will follow Brexit. Gives you wriggle room, doesn't it? It gives you what you call freedom, gives you the chance to compromise.
No. This negotiation is going to be about getting the best possible deal for the UK, the best possible deal for people in every part of the United Kingdom, because I want us to build that truly stronger global Britain that can take the opportunities that are offered by Brexit for the future, for better prosperity for all, for ensuring that we are playing a role in the world, a strong role in the world.
It certainly gives her an opportunity, said the Home Secretary yesterday, to arrive at potential compromises within the EU. Buying yourself extra time gives you the capacity to say to your party, doesn't it, I may have to carry on with a few judgments from the European Court of Justice. We may have to live with freedom of movement for a little bit longer. And don't worry, we're not facing the electorate till 2022, so I can do it.
Well, you talk about giving extra time. I've been very clear, which I was in the Article 50 letter, and I remain absolutely of this view, that it is possible and we will aim and we should be able to complete the negotiations within the 2-year time frame that is set within the treaty.
Complete the negotiations, but that does not necessarily mean, Prime Minister, does it? Unless you want to tell us it does. That in 2019, at the end of that process, there will be no more rulings from the hated European Court of Justice, hated by people who want to leave, or indeed no more freedom of movement. You can't give us that reassurance, can you?
When people voted to leave the European Union, they did vote to end free movement, as it has been having. I've been very clear. People want control of our borders. They did vote for us to have control of our laws so that we're not subject to the European Court of Justice.
So let me be clear, in your manifesto there'll be a guarantee that they will be clear of both those things as soon as Brexit happens. So 2020, you'll have absolute clarity.
We will be ensuring that we negotiate the best possible deal with the European Union, a deal which will cover the various issues that people really concerned about in terms of ensuring we have control of our borders, control of our laws, control of our money. I also want to see the best possible trade deal with the European Union. I believe that's important for us. I believe it's important for the remaining 27 countries of the European Union.
You're calling for a mandate.
Well, can I just...
Yeah, but forgive me, you're using phrases like best possible. Now, nobody's not in favour of a best possible deal. Anybody's in favour of the best possible deal. Of course we are. What people are entitled to say to you, if you're putting yourself before the electorate, is what sort of deal? So will you now spell out your Brexit prospectus, or are you asking people to vote for a blank cheque?
No, I've already spelt out the Brexit prospectus. I've already spelt out in the speech I gave in Lancaster House in January of this year. We followed that up with a white paper. That was followed up, of course, by what was put into the letter that I sent to the European Union for triggering Article 50 of the sort of relationship that we want to have with the EU.
So no more detail in the
future.
manifesto, no fresh prospectus.
Our manifesto will be a manifesto for taking this country forward. It will be a manifesto with our plan for Brexit, but also a plan, sticking to our plan for building a stronger Britain, ensuring that we have a Britain that is working for everyone, ensuring that we can encourage that trade, yes, trade with the European Union, but trade around the rest of the world as well, bringing jobs and prosperity to the UK and making sure those jobs and prosperity are around the whole of the United Kingdom.
Well, you say it's not a blank cheque. Let's talk about jobs that immigrants might do. Will you be clear with people that you want an immigration system that delivers roughly the immigration we have now, 270,000 net migration, 100,000, which was the maximum of your target, tens of thousands? Will you commit in your manifesto as to what will come out of those Brexit negotiations?
Nick, I have spent 6 years as Home Secretary before I came Prime Minister, working on the issue of migration and reducing migration. And yes, over that time, migration has gone up and come down, and we've seen various changes in it. What people want is for us to have control of our borders, and I'm very clear that we want migration at sustainable levels. I haven't changed my view on that. What we will now have when we leave the European Union is the ability to have control of in relation to people moving to the UK from the European Union.
You seem committed to fighting election without spelling anything new out at all. Nothing new about Brexit, nothing new about immigration, nothing new about trade. That is what people call seeking a blank cheque. Just saying to me, trust me, I'm in control, I'll get it sorted.
Well, if I may, with due respect, it's not seeking a blank cheque when I say to people, look what we've done already. Look what we've delivered as a government already. Look at the modern industrial strategy we're working on. Look at the policies that we have and the aims that we have in terms of a good school place for every child. Look at the changes that we're making in terms of technical education for young people, ensuring that every young person has an opportunity.
None of these are Brexit, which is why you say you're having the election.
We are having the election in order to ensure that we strengthen our position for dealing with the European Union and the negotiations. But I've also been clear, as I said yesterday, and I'm happy to say it again now, that I believe that this is the way that we can ensure we get clarity and stability into the future. We get the strong leadership we need for the United Kingdom going beyond Brexit.
Understood.
We've got to get the Brexit process right. We want to make a success of it, but we also want to ensure that we have set out a plan for this country beyond Brexit for a stronger global Britain.
One last one on Brexit, because people will want to know this. It's the reason you've given for the election. I think you're saying to the electorate, aren't you, this is it. Give me my mandate and you don't get another say. You don't get another election. You don't get another referendum. And indeed, I will say to those the Mail calls the saboteurs in Parliament, I will say, you may not oppose me on Brexit because the people will have given me their backing.
As we go through Parliament with the legislation, there will of course be challenge, there will of course be scrutiny, and there will of course be debate. But what the British people want is for this government to deliver on the vote they gave last year to leave the European Union.
Just
and
that's clarity, if you would.
That's what we will
do. For a
do.
Remainer, you're saying that's it. Forget it. It's over. If I'm elected, it's over.
There will be no... I've been very clear from last July when I became Prime Minister. There will be no second referendum. The British people voted...
There won't even be a meaningful parliamentary vote, will there?
There will be a vote. We've been very clear. There'll be a vote in Parliament on the final deal before that is actually put into place, and I would expect that to be before the European Parliament has voted on it. But I'm also remain clear that the British people voted last year to leave the European Union. We've taken that key step of triggering Article 50. The process is in motion. There can be no turning back. But now we have to ensure we deliver on Brexit, deliver a successful Brexit, and deliver for everybody across the United Kingdom.
You feel so strongly about this, as you've been clear about, decided to change your mind on this. Presumably, therefore, you'll take every opportunity you can to debate with your opponents.
I'm constantly debating with my opponents. And
On
will be.
television, like David Cameron did?
We won't be doing the television debates because I actually...
So you won't face Jeremy Corbyn on any stage at any time?
I'll be facing Jeremy Corbyn later today in the House of Commons, as I face him most Wednesdays of the year in the House of Commons.
You know what
I will be doing.
Minister, why are you running scared of debating with your political opponents?
Because I believe in campaigns where politicians actually get out and about and meet the voters. It's what I've always believed in. It's what I still believe in. I still do it. As Prime Minister, as a constituency MP, I still go out and knock on doors in my constituency. That's what I believe in doing, and that's what I'm going to be doing around this campaign.
You see, the reason I asked you at the beginning about that description, Vicar's daughter, is it seems to me the pitch you made, and have been very successful in making, is that you're straight, that you get on, that you don't play games, to use your phrase. It seems to me a lot of people looking today think that is precisely what you're doing, tearing up a promise to take a political opportunity to destroy your political opponents.
What I've done is come to a decision, which I did come to reluctantly, because you're right, I had been saying that I didn't think there should be an election before 2020. I came to the decision reluctantly because when I looked at what was happening, it seemed to me that the way that what we needed to do was strengthen our hand in negotiation with the European Union. What we also needed to do was to give this country certainty and clarity beyond Brexit. That's what this early election enables us to do.
And just finally, you once told the country with apparent certainty that we should remain in the EU. That was in our national interest. You now say with equal certainty, leave is going to be good for the future. You once said that an early election would be wrong for the country. You now say with apparently equal certainty that it is the right thing for the country to do. Does the Vicar's daughter do doubt?
First of all, on the question of remain and leave, yes, I did campaign to remain, but I also said that if we left the European Union, the sky would not fall in. And what I think the British people voted, and I think it's up to their government, it's up to their politicians to say we put our trust in the people. Now we will deliver for them, and that's what we will be. That's what we will be doing. Well, when I spoke about remain and leave, if you remember, I spoke about people making a balanced judgment on which side of the argument they wanted to come down.
I meant doubts now about this decision. Forgive me.
Oh, sorry. What about the decision to hold an election?
Yeah, in other words, I think. You looked at me a little bit like I was being very personal. I think in part because it is about leadership and you presented yourself in a particular way. And I think there are some people who are cheering you on Brexit, but they're very worried that this is the sort of political opportunism that they don't much like.
No, this is. I genuinely came to this decision reluctantly, having looked at the circumstances and having looked ahead at the process of negotiation. I want this country to be able to play the strongest hand possible in those negotiations to get the best possible deal, because that's in our long-term interests. That's what this is about. It's about asking the people to trust me, to trust us in government, to give us that mandate to go and get that really good deal for the United Kingdom.
Prime Minister, thank you very much indeed, and we look forward to talking